This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, Jeet sir, and all the participants. So today we are going to start day 2 of this FDP environmental technology. So first of all, I would like to wish you all the happy Engineers Day. So as we all know that this day is celebrated on 15th of September every year as the National Engineers Day to appreciate the contributions of Moksha Gandham Vishweshwarya. He was awarded Bharat Ratna due to his contributions uh, to the mankind. So every day we celebrate in his fond memory this day as Engineers Day. So I wish all of you happy Engineers Day. So now moving to our sessions. So today we have uh, architect Jeet Kumar Gupta with us. So he is a very renowned personality in the field of architecture as well as his contributions in the field of civil engineering are very immense. So I am feeling uh, greatly privileged to introduce Mr. Jeet Kumar Gupta to all the participants. So I will also like to give his brief introduction to all the participants and then we will move to our technical session. Architect Jeet Kumar Gupta has professional as well as his academic experience spanning over a period of more than 51 years in the field of architecture, urban planning, architecture as well as planning education. And he is the founder director of College of Architecture, IIT Badal, which is located in Punjab, Ropar district. And he is also advisor town planning Puda and chief townal planner SPCL. Sir holds the degree of BArch and his master's is in city and regional planning. He also holds the degree of LLB as well as advanced diploma in urban management from United Kingdom. He is fellow of IIA, ITPI, IGBC and IBC and he is currently working as chairman IGBC Chandigarh chapter and member state level road safety council Union Territory Chandigarh. He has held numerous positions in professional as well as academic institutions in IIA and ITPI. He is chairman of different board of studies of a large number of universities located in Punjab as well as in the nearby states. He is member court SUVPA and member academic council SMVDU as well as my own college that is SBS STC Firozpur. He is co-opted member of Working Group Planning Commission of India for preparing planning framework for ninth five-year plan and also winner of numerous academic as well as professional awards. And he has delivered guest lecture abroad at 6 universities in USA, China, SARC, Kathmandu as well as Bhutan. And he is visiting guest faculty in a large number of institutes in India like NITR, MAXIPA, CRRID, SMVDU, GZSCT, LPU, HCAP, NIT, and SPA Vijayawada. Sir is also senior consultant of 6 master plans of Punjab, Srinagar, and Chandigarh master plan. He has authored more than 300 research papers and is also author of 2 ebooks as well as he has published his articles in 8 different books and currently his 3 ebooks are under the finalization state. So I feel highly inspired by his presence and I hope all of will us gain a lot from his experience as well as his academic background. So now I would like to invite Jeet Gupta sir to kindly start his lecture. So welcome sir, please.
Thank you, Borsingji. I think it's both an honor and, I would say, opportunity to talk to such learned audience on a very auspicious day. That's Engineers Day. I think I'm lucky to have that kind of opportunity where I'm speaking to so learned people who are already, in academics and they are already imparting knowledge. And as Rarbur Singh has introduced me, you can think of, I am 51 year in profession. And that makes me, I'm already above 75 plus. So you can think of, at this age, I can lose a lot of my gray cells. And if there is a problem, I, misfire anybody or I forget it, please attribute it to my deficiency because of the age. I'm talking to you about what makes a building green. I think buildings remain very, very relevant, and buildings are important. Buildings, I think we know that they hold great relevance for the human beings. There are two kind of environment which exist on this planet. One created by God when nobody was here, and the second created by we people, the human beings, when we came on this earth. So it's a conflict between the natural environment and the man-made environment that we call the built environment, and they are antithesis to one another. Ultimately, we have to make sure if this planet is to be made sustainable, how those conflict, how those contradiction, how those dualities can be removed so that they can be synergized and we can have this planet which is very safe to live in. And we know what are the problems we are facing in terms of you know these growing pandemics, global warming, and you know carbon footprints are being generated, and then we have all those problem coming in both by our human acts, but it's reacted by the nature. So I think we have to define. We know the buildings remain very relevant for us because buildings have been integral part of human history, growth, and development. Building will define tomorrow what we were, because we all know that whenever we study a civilization, ultimately we look at what cities they created, what kind of buildings they had, what kind of material they used, what was the typology of construction, so we could decipher these growth and development and the pattern those people were following. So tomorrow, when we will be gone, we will be again interpreted by next year, future generation, the buildings we will leave. So building will continue to define the journey of human being. So buildings are vital for human growth. Please don't think buildings are dead, made of bricks and mortar. No, buildings are living organism, and buildings are always breathing. And buildings are meant to take care of all human activities right from cradle to grave itself. And we could also see that buildings have greater role in human growth and development, but it has also role in making this planet a I faced with lot of problems and lot of contradiction, because if buildings are providing us safe place to live, work, and entertain, buildings are there because they are the largest consumer of energy resources and generator of waste. They pollute environment and ecology. They are responsible for carbon footprints and global warming, and they are ultimately they will be responsible for determining how this planet can be made as a sustainable. So buildings, if they are designed as good, they provide you optimum living condition. If they are not, then surely we are in crisis. So building makes you healthy and sick. Please understand, 80% of the human life is spent within the four walls of building. Either you are in a house, you are in office, you are in education, or anywhere in shopping, etc. 80% of your life, you know, will be spent within the four walls of building. And you can understand, if 80% of your life is within the four walls of the building, then you can think of, what impact it has on the human life. So therefore, building remains vital in order to make people healthy. They are also vital to promote ecological concern and to make this world more sustainable and resource efficient. Studies so far has been made about the impact of the building, and it has been concluded based on the studies and analysis made that you have a green school, that means it makes learning easy and more meaningful. If you have a greenhouse where you are looking, if you're living, you will remain happy and healthy and more productive, And if you design a green hospital, the people, the patient will be there happy and they will remain, they will recover very quickly. And if you have a shopping mall, it's a green, surely you can have more profit itself. Please understand, buildings, in addition to defining our civilization, in defining our growth and development, they take lot many loads, The loads which are generated by the external elements. You can have extreme heat, extreme cold, there can be rain, there can be, cyclone, etc. There can be sunlight, there is wind, etc. There are pests. All these loads are basically taken by building to make you safe. So therefore, building has that kind of mechanism where, they are basically provided you the safety, etc. Please understand, a building has 7 layers, right from cradle to grave. The life cycle of a building we can divide into 7 layers. That is, right when you find a site, start designing a building, construct it, and then occupy that building. Then ultimately start living, maintain it. Ultimately, when the building outlived its life, you demolish it and reconstruct it. So therefore, I think as professionals, as engineers, as architects, we have a critical role and responsibility because we are all, involved in the built environment. So therefore, I think our role and responsibility will be what, to make building more sustainable. We have to make building, by making value addition, and we can surely conserve resources. We can promote in our environment and ecology, and that can only happen, if we design and construct our building in a rational manner. So therefore, when we talk of the green building, I think it becomes a necessity. Why it is a necessity? Because if we want to leave this world a better place for the next generation, and we have to make sure whatever we create, this does not create any imbalance. It promotes equality, it promotes sustainability. And let me also make you understand, that each building remains unique, so each site remains unique. So therefore there cannot be a prototype. You can't have a standard design and put anywhere else, because each building remains unique, each site remains unique, the principle will be same, but the operation, but the mechanism which you will adopt in planning and designing and construction will be different. Let's look at, why the context of the building is. It's because we as a human beings are multiplying and growing. This is a, total circle which represents the entire countries of the world. This is to total planets, on this, and the size of circle, shows the population of the country. You can see, right, and there are 5 planets on this, and they are shown by different colors. Red is, of course, Asia. You can make out, and you can see how India and China are dominating in terms of population, that they hold 1/3 of the total population of the world, and every third person will be either Chinese or Indians, So these people, these countries have lot of built environment, and they, because they are they have to provide the buildings for their housing, for their shelter, for their work, for education, for healthcare, etc. So therefore, these countries have lot of, commitment, and they have lot of, burden in terms of creating buildings, and they that's what we are looking at, that how we can, and these countries, let me tell you, also have role and responsibility in making this world more sustainable and livable, when we're talking of the global population, let us talk about what happens in India. Let me also tell you, it took 2 lakh years, since a human being came in, when first billion population came in, it was 1803, when first 100 crore people came in. Now it is 781 crores. That's what the population counter of the UNO tells you. 781 crore is the population. That means in the last 200 years, we have added 6.8 crore billion people, 680 crore, and we're growing very rapidly. And we're going to grow around 11 billion, by 2050. They are just estimates, where we can be. That is, I think, will be shown over a period of time that how we as a human being are behaving. In India, look at this. In the last 100 years, I'm talking of 1911, 1919 to 2011, they are the census which give you the data. In the last 100 years, we have grown only 5 times. From 25 crore, we are talking of India, we became 121 crores. Urbanization came only 3 times, 10 to 31%. Urban settlement grows 4 times, from 1960 to 7,935. The rural area grew only 3.5 times, whereas the urban area grew 15 times. That means 2.5 crores to they became 37.5 crores. Once this population increases, the obvious impact is you need more cities, you need more buildings, you need more housing to house those kind of people. You need more educational institution to teach them, more healthcare institution to take care of the ills. So you will have to have more buildings, in terms of industry, in terms of commerce, trade and commerce. And that's what it has been estimated by McKinsey Global Institute, that India will be needing 700 to 900 million square meter of built space annually. And that is the size of the Boston city. That is only meeting the urban area requirement, where the population is growing very rapidly because of migration. And they say 700 to 900 million square meter of built up space will need to be added annually to the cities, in order to make this meet the requirement of the people who are migrating. And let me tell you, in 2011, we were 37.5 crores. In 2050, we are going to be 80 crores. That means another urban India is going to be added to our existing population, to the cities. And you can see the implication. Let me also, when I'm talking to you, that buildings have dualities and contradiction. That means they are known to be large consumer of resources, and they are known to impact the environment. Let me explain you in terms of various implication. That means whatever water you withdraw, 1/6 of the fresh water goes into making a building. 1/4 of the wood harvested on this planet, is used in the making of building. Total raw material which is extracted, 30% is used by the building. Global energy consumption, 50% are by building. When I talk of these figures, they are life cycle building. It's not only construction, it is total the 7 layers which I talked to you. 1/3 of the carbon emission are attributed to building. 40% of the municipal waste is by the C&D, construction and demolition waste, which is generated by building. Half of the ozone depleting chlorofluorocarbon, it's still which is used in the building for cooling, and that is ozone depletion is because of that. And 30% of the people who are visiting hospital for one sickness or other, they are all the outcome of living in bad kind of building. So we call it a sick building syndrome. And studies have shown, there is another study which is known as high hospital acquired infection. It has been proved, the hospitals have so much infection that hospitals are curing less people, they are killing more people. That means you go to hospital to get well, you get rid of what the ailment you have, but you bring 4 or 5 another ailments, because of the large infection which is there. So they are saying hospital are killing more people than what they are curing. It is only because that hospitals have buildings which are not green, which are not sensitized, which are not, healthy, and they have so much infection, that they lead to more kind of problems to the people. So you see, 70% of the global warming is the outcome of the cities. And in cities, the major problem is because of the building and transportation, the mobility, because they are the two which are largest consumer of energy and resources. And that's what, I think we have to take note of, that how we can make buildings as minimum consumer of resources, energy, and generation of waste, and how we can minimize the travel. Travel you will always be doing, but question remains, how long you travel, what length you travel, and what mode you use. And if you use a sustainable mode, there is no problem about that. So when we are looking at that, India needs to create 700 to 900 million square meter of space, every year. You can think of what could be the number resources required, what will be the, kind of manpower will be required, what kind of energy you will require, and what will be its implication for the nation and the countries of the world. So I think we need to look back and look back, that we look back at the buildings more critically, more objectively, understand the genesis, what goes into designing, construction, and operation of the building, and surely we, make all this process very energy efficient and cost efficient, and also environment friendly. Let me also take back you to how the energy is consumed in the world. Looking at this, the developed world, which has only one-fifth of the population, 22%, the energy use is 70%, and developing world, 78%, which has a population, and they are using only 30%. But why these figures I'm trying to tell you? Tomorrow, the developing world becomes a developed world, and if the energy consumption level goes at the higher level of the developed world, you can see what could be the energy implication. So therefore, energy consumption in the developing worlds is also increasing because of urbanization, industrialization, globalization, and people are becoming rich and rich. That's what you find in India. There are so many cars, and India is becoming the hub of the car manufacturing. And there are so many cars on the road, which is 220 million cars coming annually on the road, despite the fact, we don't have oil to make them run. But that's, a different kind of phenomena, but this is the where the world is going. Let me also explain to you. A Chinese consume 3.5 times more energy than an Indian, and American consume 11 times more energy than Indian. You can think of, if our consumption level goes to that of China, and God forbid, to America. We don't want to follow America, But if it goes to the level of China, you can think of, we will have to produce energy 3.5 times what we are now doing, And let me also explain to you, the majority of the energy consumed in a nation are by the building themselves. And when we talk of the building, I'm saying that this, I'm talking of the life cycle of the building. And let me also explain to you, when we look at the life cycle, why we are considering three aspects. What goes into, making of a building, that's embodied energy. The second is the operation and maintenance energy, and only 5 out of 50%, 5% is used by the, in the making of a building. 45% of the energy, that means only 10% of the total energy consumed by building is goes into making of a building, and 90% is used in the operation and maintenance over the entire life cycle. So I think we only look at the initial embodied energy, but we don't look at the 90%. I think if building has to be sustainable, we have to be very careful, not only at 10%, but also make sure that 90% is reduced to a very, very large extent. So buildings, we are only concerned with building. I'm not going to deal with anything because that is the domain which I've been asked to explain to you. So we will look at the building, because building remain critical for consumption, etc. When we look at the context of the building, I think first and foremost is that there are three aspects which are looked at. Number one, cost, quality, and home time. Whenever anybody approaches you, please construct my building. First thing he would say, I want my building of the best quality. Second, please take minimum time to construct the building. And thirdly, it must cost minimum. So cost, quality, and time, they are the basic criteria which govern the construction of building. But please understand, they are three apex of the triangle. If you want to achieve one, there are two opposite. If you want to minimize the cost, you compromise with the quality and the time. And if you want to have better quality, you have to increase the cost and maybe you take more time. But these are the three fundamental aspects which you keep in mind while basically designing a building. But once you look at this, it was thought about that building is not confined to three parameters. There are more implication. And the implication is that building, they are basically depleting resources because they are consuming resources. They are impacting the biodiversity, and they are having harmful emission. So therefore, when you design a building, it is not only that you are looking at cost, quality, and time, you are looking at minimizing depletion of resources. Number two, conserving natural area and biodiversity. And thirdly, you are minimizing the harmful emission or impact of the building on this earth. And let me also understand you taking further, building have not local context, building has a global context. So whatever happens in India, it is impacting China, it is impacting America. What is happening in America and China, it is also impacting in India, because it's all your climate, it's all your biodiversity, it's all your nature. This is global warming. It's not that it's confined to any country which is generating it. It is impacting globally this planet. So therefore, I think we have to look the buildings not in the local context but also the global context. So cumulatively, what I have said so far, let me talk to you about building. That we said there are 7 layers of the building in designing: siting, design, construction, operation, or renovation, or deconstruction. And the building remain consumer. They consume energy, water, material, and natural resources. And what the effect they generate? They are generating waste. They are polluting air and water, and they are also indoor quality. They are also promoting heat island, and there is a stormwater runoff, and there is a noise. And ultimately, the entire effect of consumption and environmental impact is that it harm the human health. It degrades the environment and cause losses to the resources. So you can see the total ambit of the building and how we can, make sure that building which we create don't do this kind of injustice to this planet. Building are basically not hitting the environment. They are not damaging the environment. They should basically the promoter of development. And in order to make buildings promoter of development, I think we have to design building differently. Let me also explain to you. If somebody says I have energy efficient building, eco-friendly building, water efficient building, green building, or sustainable building, I think they are referring to the same, and this is a green building. Green does not mean you make a building paint with the green. It's green means the nature. So whatever you design, it's a green building is what? Designing with nature, using natural elements, natural resources, and natural sources of energy, daylights, etc. So therefore, I think when we are looking at these kind of typology of building, we have to make sure that building, when we make it, they consume minimum of resources and they consume minimum of energy. And it is possible. It is not that because we all are learned. You are all learning new and new technology. You are learning new systems. You are learning, inventing new material. You are looking at new technology, and you are doing what that how you design a building, that building remains sustainable. So if you do integrated approach to creating a built environment, that means you look building as in a holistic manner. You look a building in an integrated manner. Don't think architect has a different role, materials have a different role, or there are service provider. That means structure engineer. No, it's everybody is a contributor. So that means we are looking at site, we are looking at material, we are looking at technology, we're looking at energy, we're looking at water, you are looking at climate, you are looking at sun and wind direction and orientation. All they are you are trying to bring together. That's what we call it integrated approach to creating a built environment. And then we are designing a building which is responsive to climate, because buildings are basically trying to do what? To make you, protect you from the climate itself. So therefore, wherever a building is to be designed, you have to make sure that you understand the climate of that area. And climate, we will see that three type of climate we will be looking at. Thirdly, it is not only the new buildings which you are looking at. We have already, they say, 40% of the total built requirement has been created so far. 60% of the building is yet to come. That's the UNO projection. So when we are not only looking at the new building has to be made sustainable, we have to make sure that existing buildings also retrofitted. And then we have the yeah, we have the option of using energy efficient, low energy material equipment technology to make this building green. So there are large number of options. There are now different methodology. There are people, there is a wisdom already available given by our forefather. You are seeing vernacular building which are being constructed. They always talked of sustainability. They never talked about anything else. So looking at the context, when we are having huge kind of buildings being created, there are different kind of options. The building footprints have changed. Earlier it was small building, now they're big building. Building were lower in height, they are large. Building have grown in stature, and and they are becoming 1 mile high tower and 2 mile high tower. There are new typology of building, new materials are coming into the building. So therefore, I think we have to look all these things. And now we are looking at one option, that let's make our building green. And that's what we are trying to make this built world more sustainable. And even Sustainable Development Goal 17, which UN who has enunciated for making this planet sustainable, they are even said, if this world has to be sustainable, we have to promote energy efficient building, and ultimately we have to have net zero building and a green rated building, and that will hold a premise for this planet to be a green building. These are the 17 goals which I was talking about, which the UNO has enunciated. By 2030, the nations must achieve these kind of thing, and India has that is what we called it Paris Agreement, which India signed recently. And the goal 11 is the one which we are concerned, which says we have to make build cities more, and cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Unless the cities remain sustainable, they say this word cannot be hold for sustainability. And please understand, if you achieve one goal, that means if you make cities sustainable, you make buildings sustainable, there are 9 out of 17 goals you can achieve it, because the buildings are so complicated. Buildings are, so important, so vital. It touches so many aspects of human beings and the world in this on this planet, that by achieving only by doing one activity, that's if you make the buildings green building, you are trying to contribute to 9 other planets. So we have been talking about green building. Let me define the green building in a simple manner. Please understand, a green building try has 5 characteristics. So green building is one. Number one, it uses less water. Number two, it optimizes energy. Number three, it is conserve natural resources. Number four, it generates less waste. And fifth, it provide you healthy space for occupants. So it's a water, it's energy, it's natural resources, it is waste, and it is a happy, healthy space for the occupant. That is the total ambit which we will be talking about in making the building sustainable, So all our approach shall be basically revolving around these five parameters, how we can achieve this thing, And so they are depicted like this: conserve natural resources, use less water, optimizes energy efficiency, generate less waste, and provide healthier spaces, So you have to reinvent your building planning, designing, construction, operation, and maintenance. If these five objectives you can achieve it, I think you have done your job. And there is not one simple solution. There will be multiple solution and multiple options, to achieve this, because each space has its own relevance. Each factor has its own parameters, and that's what you have to reinvent everything so that you can achieve those kind of things. Let me also tell you, a green building remains very relevant, and this is what a green building, I'm repeating again, they are basically your site, then your energy efficiency, then your material and waste, and then water, etc., and the indoor air quality. If these are five parameters, if you can achieve it, you have done your job, and you have achieved the objective of creating a green building. When we try to differentiate what is the difference between green building and conventional building, visually they will look same, They will be used same, there will be residence, there will be commercial, there will everything. But difference lies, that a green building save you everything: energy, water, natural resources. It makes you most comfortable, and it creates the best of the living environment. Let me also explain to you what are the benefits of green buildings, and that's what we are trying to tell you, that what we were trying to achieve, So benefit will be number one. Huh? Number one benefit will be that it saves up to half of the total energy, depending upon what level of energy efficient building you can make it. You know, and now we are trying to look at energy efficient building. That means whatever energy you are consuming, you are reducing. That's known as energy efficiency. Second stage will be zero energy. That means building. That doesn't mean building will not consume any energy. Building will go on consuming energy, But whatever energy is consumed by building is produced by building. So the net balance will be zero energy. Third stage will be ultimate stage, when building is an energy positive building. That means building generate more energy than what it is consuming, So that is the ultimate we are looking at. So building saves 40% of water, half one third of the carbon emission can be reduced, and if you have 1 million square feet of built up space built as green, मतलब 10 लाख स्क्वायर फुट अगर 10 लाख स्क्वायर फुट ऑफ footprints building, if you have, it save you 8,000 to 12,000 tons of carbon dioxide reduction, and your electric load goes down by 3 megawatts, Then also you are by just designing and constructing green building, you are reducing the waste. So up to 70% of waste reduction can be there. So please understand, when you are reducing, when you are producing green building, and if you constructing 700 to 900 million square meter of space, you are practically saving 21,000 to 27,000 megawatt of new generation, of electricity. And you can think of 1 megawatt of power plant, it requires 6 crore of rupees, So annually you will be, saving around 130 to 150 crores of rupee of the new plant to be put in for generating electricity to meet the need. So when I'm talking of reduction, once you reduce the solid waste, that means there will be less waste which needs to be carried and dumped, So you have less manpower, you will have less vehicle, we will have less people employed by municipality, and you will have less dumping space where you put the waste. When you are reducing the water requirement, that means you will be drawing less water, you will be supplying less water, your network will be thinner, and then your waste will be smaller, and that means you will be spending less on pumping the water, electricity bills, and also your all pipe system will be thinner and smarter, and you will have lesser sewerage treatment plant. So that means it's not that you are reducing and saving on bills, but you are contributing to the nature conservation of resources. So when you cumulatively look at a green building, provide you financial health, it improves your environment, and it helps the society. These are the four negativity which are clearly indicating you are, by green building, there is no positivity. That means you are not adding to anything. You are cutting down energy, carbon, water, and solid waste, and they are basically the two kind of benefits we can, if you can, cull together. They are tangible benefits which you can quantify, and the intangible benefits. So when the tangible benefits, that means is your operating cost is less every day, every month, you are getting a reduced water bill, you are getting a reduced electric bill, and you will find your you know operation of the building becomes very, very cost effective. So that means over the entire life cycle you will save so much money. In addition, you will remain healthy. You are not adversely impacting the environment because you are not consuming energy. You are having your own sources of energy, and once you are not environment impacting environment, there is no question of pandemics, these kind of ills. You don't have those all. And like Delhi, you have to close down the office because there are smog, and they are all being basically outcome the way the environment has been impacted by our travel, etc. And once you are in a house, you are in the best of environment. In an office, you have the best of environment. So that means you remain healthy, happy. And once you are remaining happy and healthy, you will not be going to you don't need hospital. You don't have to be admitted there. Your hospital are the most, I would say, worst thing, because they are not positive contributing to you. They are only trying to take off your ills, because why you should become sick, so they are not, hospitals are not productive thing. They are only trying to remove the negativities, and they are costing money, lot of money, because when you get admitted in hospital, you remain unproductive, you become non-productive, you are living there, medicine is there, hospital is there, equipment is there, so many learned people, so many educators, so much costly equipment is provided for your upkeep and health. And you are seeing the way, the COVID-19 has uh, what has caused, to the hospital, and how much it becomes expensive. So once you don't get sick, you remain productive, you remain happy, healthy, you don't take leave. That means more time you are on the job, and that once you are productive, that means you will add to the benefit of the society and the company where you work in. And it is said, that a green building increases the profitability by 8% by people who are working there. And secondly, there is no attrition. That means people don't like to leave the place if you are giving them first class environment. Because in America there is a lot of attrition. People run here and there, but it has been seen people working in green building, even when they are offered higher, money, they will prefer not to go because they find that getting more money and living in a bad environment will be, more negative, have more negativity than remaining healthy and in a happier place. So when you talk of the green building, naturally we'll look at the cost here. The cost is the impact. Cost is a factor that we said, one of the major factor when you construct a building. So let me also explain to you right in the beginning. The first building which was constructed in India is the CIA Godrej Green Building Council headquarters at the Hyderabad. It was constructed in 2003. It is the platinum rated building. This is the highest rated building in outside America, first building to be constructed. It costed 18% more than the normal building. And but that 18% is now has been recovered within 7 years. That means by 2010, whatever was spent has already been recovered. So you in the ITC building, it was 1,70,000 square feet was this. It costed 15%. And last Switzerland One Earth Pune, which has 800,000 square feet of area. It is platinum rated, and it only costed 2% more than what it was, and it has been recovered in 2 years. So cost remains high. Tomorrow the efforts are being made that green buildings should be designed, constructed in such a manner that they you know don't cost high. They cost as good as what the normal building is there. But you can see from 18% we came to 2%. It clearly shows over the period of time that we have been reducing our cost. Why it has been reducing cost? Because we now are understanding the context of a green building, how to design a green building, how to construct a building. There are so many products which are now available, which goes into making of a building. And it has been said, the moment you start designing with the concept on green building right from the beginning, the cost will go down. But nevertheless, even if it is higher, the higher cost is recovered within 2 or 3 years, at the rate of 1%. And rest of the life, because a building is there for 80 or 90 years, maybe 50 years, rest of the 48 years, at least you will be saving the building. Let me also tell you the total cost. Only they say out of the total cost, 10% cost goes into making a building, 90% is operation and maintenance. So therefore, don't look at the initial cost, look at the operation and maintenance cost. These are the three, we have seen there are three curves, which tell you how the sustainable building, green building, energy efficient building, and the conventional building. So you can see conventional building costs less, least, in the beginning. Energy efficient higher, but a sustainable building remains, which is the green building. But when you look at the life cycle in the end, the sustainable building cost remains static. It remains uniform over a period of time, entire life cycle, because you have done everything right from the beginning. Energy efficient, initially it saves you, but in the end, the conventional and the cost goes very very high, as they become old. So there are large gap, and the cost involved becomes less. So it clearly says go for a green building when you're looking at a life cycle of building. This is the building, which I was talking about, green building headquarter at Hyderabad. If you have been ever to Hyderabad, if you ever have an opportunity, please let us know. We'll make a visit for you, and you can see this building is now a zero energy building, and that means whatever energy is consumed by building is produced by building. And this was the building which first building was constructed in India as the platinum rated building, which costed 18%. But now it is building which has been a role model of sustainable building. So now after we have gone through this, the green building, let me also explain to you that how to design a green building. Let me also explain to you, if you are designing a green building, please take a decision right in the beginning. It's not that half the building has been designed and constructed, and you think about that green building. I have to make this building green. That will cost you change in the design. That will cost you, certain demolition, and it will increase the cost. So if you have to design a green building, take a decision right in the beginning. That will help you to make the building green in the real sense. It will minimum is redesign. It will try to achieve the objective, and also building will be most economically viable. Then you have to set a goal, whether you want to go for platinum, you want to gold, silver, or just a higher you go, more input you will be required. So you have to tell what is the level of energy efficiency, water consumption, and how you are going to trade rain, stormwater, because they are all basically ultimately taken note of, while evaluating your building. So then for designing this building, you have to build a green team. Please understand, a green building is a collective effort. It's not a individual effort. Don't think, in a normal building we will hire an architect who will try to do a building, then we go for a structural engineer, then go for public health and other kind of people. There are more and more people are brought in. But no, in the case of a green building, everybody works together. In a normal building, all individual architect says, I've designed, my role is only designing. Structural engineer say, I've done my structure, then services man says, I have given, fire, lift, everything what I provided. I am only concerned with that. In case of a green building, architects, engineer, consultant, they have, they are supposed to have an expertise, knowledge, experience, and understanding of the green concept so that can do it. And they are jointly responsible. They are right from the day one. They are there, and they are there at the end of the project. And they will continue to be there even after the project is finished, because they have to monitor whatever they envisaged in the original design, has that been achieved or not. And then you will adopt integrated approach, and then of course you will follow the green principle. When you talk of the green building, I think you will look at the climate, and climate at three level: regional climate, look city climate, and the site climate. Then look at the orientation. That means where is the north, south, east, and west, so that where is the sun rises, and how, where is the maximum heat and where is the minimum heat, so that you can do it, because there is only one original source of light and heat, that's the sun. And you have to make maximum use in the green building, because you are have minimum dependence on the man-made energy, etc. Then you look at the wind direction, so that if you have to ventilate and cool the environment, then you must know this thing. After that, you will take up the planning. That means you will decide the shape, coverage of the building. Where are the where your bedroom will be there, your drawing room will be there, where your store, where your kitchen, where everything will be there. So that means you will decide the placing of the room, you will allocate use, you will design the circulation, and you will see that how the building have to be placed in the site. Then you come to the building envelope, that what will be the height, where will be the window will be placed, where will be building have brick walls, and then you will be where you need a projection, etc. They were all be basically part of the building envelope. What you see, that roof and walls, they are all building envelope. Then you will decide about what are the material you are going to use, and ultimately the effort shall be to use low embodied material, which are locally available, which are in the natural form, which are lightweight, and which is lean reduced, and they have longer life and require minimum maintenance. And then you will look at technologies which have to be cost effective, material efficient, which should lead to speedier construction, and they should remain energy efficient. And lastly, you will look at that you have the best of the indoor quality, or the spaces which you have created, so that people are healthy. So designing green building remains, we this entire planet is made of five major element. We call it Panch Bhuta. We as human beings are all made of Panch Bhuta. So therefore, in a green building, when we talk of, that we're designing with nature, that means we are taking at Prithvi, Jal, Agni, Vayu, and Akash. They are all element which goes into making of a green building. Prithvi here is a site selection and planning. Jal is a water conservation, Agni is an energy efficiency. Vayu is indoor air quality, and Akash is daylight, night, sky, and pollution. They all cumulatively go into making of the building. We'll see to this. So this is a green building where you have a holistic approach, and where you have energy, material, water, site, and indoor quality as the basic elements. How we design the building, I said, please look at the climate zone. India is defined into five climate zone. Five climate zone are there. Climate is defined on two parameters. Number one is the temperature. Number two is the humidity. So for a certain zone to be defined, 6 months, the similar condition must prevail. So it's a hot, then temperature, dry means humidity. So you find and you map it, and it is done for a 30 years, for putting a place into which zone. It's not very difficult. It is you can't have zone for such a country, because with the temperate climate varying very fast, and very differently. So largely for the help, they have the a national building code has divided the country into 5 climate zones. It's a hot and dry, warm and humid, moderate, where there is no such kind of thing like we have in the Delhi, etc., where every 2 months the season changes. They are in the composite. They are referred to as a composite climate because there is no clear defined climate. So you have all variation. Extreme heat, extreme cold. You have rain, humidity, everything. So you have hot and dry, warm and humid, moderate, cold, and composite. So please understand, a green building will have the same principle of designing, but it shall not be same because a building has to be in response to climate, which zone you are, your requirement for lighting, heating, ventilation, thermal comfort will remain same. Accordingly, building will have to be designed differently. So these are the 5. Red remains hot and dry, there are coastal areas where are warm and humid. The central one, which is the largest, it is the composite one. Blue are the cold, and rest small patches which you think of pink. They are temperature. We are temperate. Neither there's we are large variation in heat and cold. Like Bangalore, Pune, etc. And they are the one. So, what are the principle you will adopt while designing building in this climate? Please understand, you don't want your body to be exposed to too much heat, not to too less humidity also. So it's a hot and dry. Your basic wherever in you are designing in hot area, you have to make sure you design a building which does not gain heat. First fundamental is don't allow the building to gain heat. And if it gain heat, you have to make sure it is immediately kicked out. So that means you have to reduce heat gain and then promote heat loss. They were there. And how you do that, and once it's a dry, you have to have humidity, you have to have water moisture to be built in this. So what are the option available with you? Once you are in a hot area, please understand, heat is gained by walls and the roofs, the openings, etc. So please design in a building in such a manner. Number one, you have minimum exposed area of walls, and the roof. Then you increase the thermal, you insulate the building. Then you increase the thermal capacity. So sun is beating the walls. If the walls are thick, they will take care of that heat even transmitted. Heat is convection, conduction, and radiation. Only 3 methods which you all know by which the heat is there. So all 3 you have to leverage to make sure that heat is not gained there. So that then if you have to make sure the heat doesn't hit, you can also have buffer spaces. You can there are north, south, east, west. Sun never rises on the north. So north remains comparatively cool. Highest is the south when there is sun is on the top. And east and west sun is rising. It has remains. The heat is remain less, but west sun becomes very very different. They are horizontal. They have to be managed accordingly. But please understand, walls you want to reduce the intake of heat from walls. So that means the wall area should be minimized. You want to reduce the heat gain from the roof. Please make sure that you have from the roof, you reflect the heat. What you do, you can, there have been green roofs. There have been these white tiles which you can put in that heat is reflected, or you can have sprinkling of water that evaporation causes cooling. So that is different methods which are available. Nature has also given you trees, which help you in keeping the area cool, etc. And also you have to make sure that you have openings which are not exposed to heat. And then wherever the heat sun beats the walls, You can have the pale, you have light color. So light color has the, property of reflecting the sun heat. So that is kind of thing. And then courtyard remains one of the most valuable, like Rajasthan, Gujarat, etc. They are all using these kind of things. And even you see in the desert area, the buildings are constructed very close. The road width is, have very less road width, for the reason that building must cause shadow on this to mutually support, and they will always have a, the courtyard, and then they will have smaller windows, and the windows will be only northern side, not on the east and west, so that they don't go have minimum, they gain minimum heat, so they are the number of options which you will use while designing, so this is the courtyard in hot and dry. You will do is, and if you have, trees planted, this will further have more cool air. If you have water bodies in the, if you have fully landscape with a water pond, in the courtyard, you will find your entire house will remain cool, etc. You can have cavity walls, and there are numerous options, like you have those windows which are there for this. Window can should provide you light, but it should not take you heat inside. So you have to, you have to have a glass which is known as, so which have minimum solar heat gain coefficient, so there are double layer, there are three layers, there are different kind of glasses which are available that you can use it. So similarly in warm and humid, you'll find the same formula of dealing with the heat, but here you have a problem of humidity. There's a lot of humidity, and humidity can be tackled only but, by air. You have the air circulation, so that means you will have to increase ventilation, and if you cannot increase the ventilation, you have to have, dehumidifier. That means you will have to put desiccant, which sucks the moisture on desk. They are the option, in the case of moderate and temperate climate, they are basically, you again have to only manage the heat, in the case of composite climate, you will find you have to be very careful. In case of, you have to minimize heat gain in summer, but you have to attract maximum heat in the winter, because they're extreme cold and extreme hot. Similarly, in case of summer, you will have to make sure that heat losses are promoted, but in case of monsoon, you will have to have cross ventilation. So buildings are difficult to be designed in composite climate, because there are six kind of climates, weathers, so seasons, which you have to take care. This is IIT Kanpur, how they have tried to do. They are following the orientation of the building north-south. For shading the roof, they are putting this photovoltaic cell and solar. They are generating energy. They are also shading this building. Then there are outdoor solar light. They are not touching any kind of tree. There are very limited. The building footprints are limited, and then there is lesser payment, so that there is not heat island generated. So there are numerous systems which have been there, and when you talk of designing in cold climate, you are going opposite to what you are doing in the hot season, and there you are trying to, you know try to push heat out. Here you are trying to pull the heat in. In the case of cold climate, you have to please bring in as much heat inside the building, because you want the heat to be there done. So for that, what you do, north there is never a sun. So please, in a cold climate, no building will be constructed on the northern side. Make it sure, that all northern slopes are banned for construction in this. You can have a building facing east, west, or south, no problem, but never in the north, so that you have to be clear. Secondly, there we were trying to push out the heat. Here we are trying to pull in the heat, and so you are trying to have what, you are trying to have dark colors, so that if you have a dark color on walls and roof, you will have maximum, things which are coming in. So there are a number of things, like this is most of the, your windows are towards south, So half of the window is for light, half of for your photovoltaic cell. So you are generating your own electricity. You will see all settlements in the older these hill areas, they are put on the southern slope, and their height is so maintained that they don't shadow the other one. So that is the reason they are trying to make the optimum use of sun. And despite the fact they don't have any other artificial system, they are still sustainable. This is Leh and Ladakh. There is another method, that's a trombe wall. That is, you on the southern side wall, you have a glass and then leave some gap between the wall and the this glass, so that when you sun falls on this, it heats the air. That means the air trapped in this become light. This goes up, and this pushes uh, the light fresh air. So the light hot air goes up, and this air gets circulated, and the entire building gets heated up. So they are the different methods which are there. So once after you have looked at the you know climate, climate aside, the regional climate, city climate, then you come to the site climate. So for designing building, you have to be very, very careful that you look at the site very careful, because you have to understand site, where it's located, what is the orientation, north, south, east, and west, and what is the wind direction, what are the soil condition, what is the load bearing capacity, can you have multi-story, double story, or a single story building. That will all depend upon what are the soil condition, what is the topography, it is a flat or it is undulating, what kind of vegetation and natural feature are there, what is the rainfall over that, and where is the precipitation, is there a snowfall. You can't have a flat roof, you will have to have a sloping roof, so that water gets out very quickly, and so is the snow, which should immediately get, otherwise it create a problem. What are the infrastructure existing? Then you have to look at the surrounding land use, and then you have to see what are the good visible signs from the building, the site. So you look within the site, you look at outside the site. So when you design a building, first thing is you have to study the physical characteristic which I told you. Then look at what is site and slope. Third, you have to look at the climate, orientation, and wind direction. Then find out which is the best orientation. Then whatever building you are designing, divide the spaces. What are livable spaces? They are non-livable spaces. Livable spaces means there are human habitation spaces, where non-livable means there are not humanly habitated, where human beings are not there. So you can afford to have bad kind of orientation where these rooms can be placed. And all livable rooms should have the best of the orientation. Then define the planning, do the building envelope, and then see what the integrated character is this. If there are building high rise, don't bring low rise. If there are low rise building, don't make a high rise building, because then you're doing injustice to the this surrounding building. So you have to go with the culture, with the neighborhood, and the typology of building which are there. You don't have to do your standalone building which damages the other building. Then you have to minimize the fingerprints of building. That means you don't have to have cover the entire site. Cover as less site as you can. You have to minimize the damage to the site. If there are trees, etc., don't cut the trees. If there are certain nature has given you, please respect that nature. If the trees are coming, put that as a part of the courtyard building itself, or give the set off. You can do that. Design with nature and culture. And if you are doing a big area like university or make colleges, you make sure that you don't lay down road everywhere, so that you promote vehicular power. It is vehicles everywhere. So you promote the pedestrianization. That means let people come and park their car and move around on foot or on bicycle, etc. Then always you will keep in mind your approach shall be preservation, conservation, and regeneration. This is the impact of minimum footprints. If there are no building, that means 50% of water will go down the earth for recharging. 40% will be evaporated, and only 10% will be runoff. That's what you will have to manage. The more you construct, the recharging will be reduced, evaporation will be reduced, runoff will increase. And if you construct more than 75%, that means your water which goes inside the earth will be 15%. You are not losing water only, because less water goes on recharging and you will become water deficient because you are using the groundwater. Your evaporation goes only 30%, but runoff goes from 10% to 55%. That means you will have more floodability. You will have to have bigger rainwater system. You will have to transport that water somewhere. So please do not do have minimum footprints of the building. If you have a contoured site, plan along the contours. If you have to do the across the contour, please minimize cutting and filling. Then of course you will look at that which side is building. You will have to make optimum use of your size, shape, and orientation. When we look at the energy efficiency, third component, that is energy efficiency, you can do by what? By three methods. That means you can reduce the energy demand by designing itself. So if you have climate responsive architecture design, if your architect is very intelligent, he understands the green building, he will design in such a manner that you have minimum requirement for energy, that means for your lighting and heating, etc. So he will design you know, he will place your building in the orient building in the best possible manner. And then he will design a building envelope so that you have the maximum light coming in. The size of the room will be such that the last corner will have the natural light. So he will try to do the daylight harvesting, and then he will be using the natural resources of heating and cooling. And this, mind you, does not cost anything. It is only designing. Second is you can do energy efficiency by active means, because you are using a lot of equipment in the building. You have lights, fan, air conditioner. You have machinery, everything. But please, when you buy these kind of things, have all star rated, so that you can reduce the energy consumption by active manner. And last is, when of course they will be costing you a bit higher, but when you look at the entire context of life cycle of those machinery, they will always be saving for you. Thirdly is that that is the method. Building creates own energy. That means you have a solar voltaic cell, etc., and panels which are put in, and you have water heating system which will generate electricity, which will offset, and your building will remain energy efficient. So your passive design, your planning and designing, your natural lighting using high efficiency lighting system, and then they have all system will have to be properly sized, oversizing everything, and then what will be the color of the building depending upon where you are used, your or your values of R and ceiling, etc. Then minimum glass on east and west, huh? And they are all basically, there are no methods, computing methods which can work out. They can simulate the building, can tell you how you can make your building more energy efficient. Let's understand how the sun moves during winter. Sun moves around south. It rises in the southeast, it sets in the southwest. So its sun is in a very, it travels very short distance here, and days are shorter, sun height is not very high, so you can make use of that. But in the case of summer, the sun moves in the north, around north. That means it rises in the northeast, it goes in the northwest itself. So therefore, you have to see, where what kind of building you are designing. In case you are doing an industrial building, you will then require not heat, you will require light. So all your trusses will be oriented towards north. In case of all other building where you need the light and heat, then I think south remains very good. Southeast are the best thing, because in east sun rises, it is not very hot. In south it is very vertical during summer, and it is horizontal in winter. In winter it comes inside, in summer you can cut off by giving only a projection. But please avoid west sun. That is very, very difficult. They are all horizontal. You have louvers to then by planning you can do it. That's how you do it, that when you have the site, you will find by orientation, you can find out which are the best one, So all your living area should have the best of orientation. All non-living area could be in the worst orientation. So you can have your living room, bedroom, bathroom, bedroom in the best thing, but all your, workshop, all your stairs, all your, this parking garage, etc., and WCs, etc., which are not much used, they can go on, all stores can go in the, negative kind of, building in the orientation, which are not conducive. So by planning, you can do it. So then you also doing with the, light, that you have to have the maximum light. In that case, you have to see that all rooms have adequate light, So don't take an indirect light. Try to take a direct light, but avoid glare, For that, you will have to keep the depth, of the room and the height of the walls, so that you have adequate, the glass put in, which can even the last corner is lit till the sunlight is there. So all this needs intelligent daylighting. Even for your basement, you can harvest your daylight. That means just take out a pipe which is very polished. On the top of the pipe, you put the glass, and these are taken inside, So what the glass, the daylight is captured by glass, which is reflected by the pipe, and you can, light the basement without using any unnatural light. So you can harvest the sunlight, through pipes, and bring it in the basement itself, which needs lighting all the time. So you don't use, artificial light or anything. You can use the natural light till sun is there. So then you need a cross ventilation, and that is what you have to see. If the blocks are there, then their spacing. Number two, windows, how they are to be placed, so that you will find that there is a cross ventilation is there. Then you have a green roof, huh? Which are one of the option to make the building green, and green walls. They are the practices which are being done by the other countries to make this building more green and sustainable. Water is the next priority which we are looking at, and please understand, water, वल पानी है, जल है तो जीवन है. So water remains, the most critical element. And what else option you have for conserving water? You have to use low flush light, toilets. And then you can use waterless urinal. You have sensor operated wash basin. You have advanced water conservation system. You have recycling grey water, and of course you can source water by from rainwater harvesting. What will be the principal strategies? Number one, slow the flow. Whatever tap you are using, please have those taps which, which uses less water. Number two, you have to break the water. Don't allow the water to flow in full stream, because that doesn't make, optimum use. Mix the water with air, So we will find, if you mix the air with water, what happens, the pressure of the water is there, but the water consumption goes half, And if you have, very efficient system, you can use mix the water air to make it a mist, from 12 liters per minute you can go to 2 liters per minute. You can have 160. That means you can cut off 85% of water use, Then you have to source water. Rainwater harvesting is there, groundwater charging is there, but please limit single use of water. Try to use multiple use of water. If you have used water for hands, let it use for, your flushing latrine, etc., for your gardening, etc. So that's what you have to look at. So then you have to design a dual plumbing system. You have to minimize wastewater. You can recirculate the system, and you have to count, how much water is being used for what purpose. A green building reduces water consumption by one third, from 45 liters to 30 liters. Similarly, you can see those kind of equipment. So you all, in your college, if you have old those flushing lid assistant, replace it by 3 liter, and you have, certain taps which are there. You just put a fixture there that will add air to this, and your water consumption will immediately go down. Landscaping remains another, major consumer. So we feel very happy when we'll have big lawns, but please understand, these lawns consume lot of water. So have minimum area under lawns, have local trees. Don't bring trees from outside, you want to show there. They can't survive, they need too much water, etc. So have the local trees and the local flora and fauna, because they can survive in that kind of climate using minimum water, etc. You can use sprinkler water, you can have different systems by this, but landscaping you have to do very clearly. And there is a xeriscaping, like the trees which are used in the deserts. You can see those cactus, etc. They still survive in those where there is no water, because there are no leaves. If you have major leaves, you require more water, etc. So then, wherever the major consumer, there are, units which are consuming large water, please make sure that they are asked that they will, recycle the water and reuse it. Let me also see, there are now sewerage treatment plant which are available, very compact, very small, and they can recycle it and, reuse it. And if you are, since you are all in colleges, please make sure that you try to make your own college highly energy efficient and highly water efficient, because you can redesign the system. And I can tell you, all engineering colleges and all these university or institution, they can be made energy efficient, provided you relook at the building, you look at the water consumption of each building, and devise your methods. But we are now discussing broadly, they can be used in this. After we have looked at the climate, designing, we looked at energy efficiency, we looked at water efficiency, we looked at orientation, and now we are looking at, the materials. Material, we know, have a great impact on making a building green, etc. So therefore, I think we will use which material, a material which are obtained naturally, which are, from renewable sources, which can be harvested in a sustainable manner, which are available locally, and they have lesser embedded energy in producing it. You don't transport the material from outside. You can even, material which is basically from construction and demolition, you can use that. You can salvage and reclaim it. And then you should see the material used have lower embodied energy, they are durable, they can be recycled, and they can be reused. So when you use the material, please see, they require minimum maintenance, the upkeep, they have longer life, and they are basically generate minimum waste. Even, like brick can be used anytime, anywhere. So you can see, you make things which are from the waste itself. So try to use the waste, and try to make those material. C&D material, the construction and demolition waste is becoming a major source of construction material. And you can do what, you can, those can be put in one area in a particular site in the city. Then you have, private people and other people who can salvage and, remake it. Like concrete blocks, you can have good windows, doors, they can all be taken out and they can be again reused. But that requires a different kind of strategy and option. But ultimately, you have to see, the construction and demolition waste, which is becoming the large component of waste, and which is creating major hazard because it does not destroy. They are used integral part in the construction of the building. So one material I'm talking about is a fly ash brick, and fly ash brick is caused by, made by what? fly ash generated by thermal plant. Earlier it was the biggest challenge, and the people was doing, they were dumping. There are huge, you know, mountains which are built there. Then they starting putting in the water, the river water, those water resources. They killed all kind of you know the fishes, etc. They caused environmental degradation, and ultimately when they were threatened, then industry came forward, and now they are being used for creating fly ash bricks. And fly ash bricks has reduced embodied energy. It doesn't require any heating. It is just making, you have fly ash, we have lime, and the gypsum, they all mix together, and then they are compacted, so no heating. So your embodied energy is reduced by 40%. Since they are unfired, there is no carbon emission. They are thermally, they are excellent, but they are so much insulated, because they don't allow heat to come, and heat to be lost, gain heat loss, then they are not bothered about the fire, because they are already burnt up to 1500 to 200,000 degrees, then there can never be a fluorescence. Like you have white patches coming on all kind of bricks which you use, because they have salt in this. So in this case, you will not have, because there is no salt involved in this. Similarly, autoclaved aerated concrete blocks, which you can use it. They are lightweight, they are inexpensive, they are cost effective also. So if you want to transport it, it will be costing very less. There will be less labor because they are light. It will also reduce the self load of the building. You can, they are basically 8 inches by 8 inches by 16 inches, and they replace 10 bricks. And one bricks cost 3.2 kg, and that means 10 bricks cost 32, weigh 32 kg, and this block is hardly 14 to 15 kg, half the weight of this, and you are just putting one block, and 10 bricks are laid. You have minimum material, you have minimum labor, you have, width of the even wall reduced from 9 inches to 8 inches, and you then plaster it, do everything, that makes it 10 and a half inches, and then decrease the space. You can have in the natural form. If at all you want to do it, just put a putty and just put any color, that will be done. That doesn't require any space. So it's, your self load goes down of the building, your structural requirement goes down, and these buildings, these blocks can be cut very easily to shape and size, since they are manufactured in the machinery, and they are they are factory made, they are to the size, they are you don't have to bother for all the time, because it can be laid quickly. You won't be basically bothered about quality itself, like bricks, they being light, so they are not prone to much. Even when there are earthquakes, they can withstand the test of the time. Similarly, UPVC window, they are excellent insulator. They reduce heating and cooling loads, and they are also known to prevent loss, and they are not impacted by pollution, salt, acid rain, or pollution, etc. They require minimum maintenance and upkeep. Of course, they are expensive right in the beginning, but over a life cycle, when you look at, they remain user friendly, eco friendly, they are safe, etc. Bamboo has been be another material which you can use, because bamboo is now being considered as the steel of 21st century. That means where steel is being used, bamboo will be used. It is known to have high compressive strength and tensile strength, earthquake resistance, lightweight, cost effective, and it has lot of quality because it's fast growing, it's simple to design, it eliminates the use of wood, it's eco-friendly, and then it sucks in carbon dioxide and reduces global warming, and it is known to produce lot of oxygen, and suck in carbon dioxide. So that is what, the context remains, and bamboo is one area, material which we can think of. Of course, its limitation will be numerous, but surely it is one of the natural material. Last, we are coming to the indoor air quality. That's about health. Why indoor air quality is better, is required, is essential, because indoor air quality has the capacity. If you have good quality, you go to a cinema. After half an hour, you will find something happening to you, because all the fresh air which was there has all been eaten by you, because you are inhaling oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide. So all the oxygen has been basically consumed. There is very limited supply of oxygen, so with the result, you feel sick, etc. So this is, if you have an indoor air quality, good indoor quality, it reduces your respiratory disease, allergy, asthma, and then it doesn't make you sick, and it makes you healthy. So if you are in a poor indoor air quality, that means it leads to tiredness, lack of concentration, and can make you sick. So therefore it is very important that indoor air quality is maintained. How the indoor quality is impacted, it is because of poor ventilation. It's impurities coming in this. If you have poor insulation, if people are smoking within the building itself, and if you use material which have a toxic base, like you have painting, you have varnishes, etc., or you have flooring which is made, if they have all chemical base, I think you are heading for a disaster. So you don't, if you are using high volatile organic compound based paints involved, if there is a dampness and water intrusion, that means there will be microbial contamination which will be mixing in air and you will be inhaling. And then if you are using for cleaning your floor, you are putting phenyl, which is a chemical base, surely you are doing damage to yourself. If there's poor lighting, there are a lot of furniture which is painted with those varnishes with chemical, and if you try to put carpet on your floor, I think you are doing a great damage. Don't put carpet on your floor. Don't have those carpet in the drawing room, etc., because they all have dirt which are not cleaned, so they remain a perpetual source of poor indoor pollution. So they remain to be seen. And then during construction, if you don't exercise options, this will pollute the environment. And then if you remove all those trees and vegetation which helps you in improving the environment and give you oxygen, I think you have to be careful. So if you do poor management in site and use lot of pesticide, they will bring this. Please also understand, a full grown tree produces 7 cylinders of oxygen per day. 7 cylinders of oxygen. And a cylinder of oxygen costs around 300 rupees. That means a fully grown tree yields 2100 rupees worth of oxygen every day. And of course, it sucks carbon dioxide what you are leaving. Secondly, it produces cooling to the extent of 5 air conditioner 1 ton. 5 tons of air conditioning, that load it gives. So you can think of what are the benefits of the trees. And please understand, in Canada they have 9,000 trees per person. I'm repeating, they have 9,000 trees per person, whereas in India we have only 28 trees in against each person. You can think of where is 28 and where is 9,000. That means 300 times more than this. And you can see what will be the quality of environment prevailing in Canada and what in India. So therefore, if you have to have best of indoor quality, please pump in fresh air. You have to ensure the quality of indoor air. You have to have natural light. You have to have proper acoustic. You have to have environmental comfort. And then you can use plants, and you can have proper building monitoring system. I'm suggesting 3 plants for you, which you can put in your rooms, even in your bedroom, in your office room, in your classroom, and you'll find your environment will immediately improve. There are Erica palm, there are snake palm, and there are money plant. They don't cost. They're free, And this you can put it where. And all these three are like Shiva. They will all suck in all the carbon dioxide you leave, and they will exhale oxygen. which you require. So they make you healthy. So make sure that you have your, you know, indoor air quality for improving these plants. You can use it. There are misconception that high-rise buildings are highly energy inefficient. No, it depends upon how you design, how you leverage the sunlight, etc., and what mechanism you use for the operation of building. So this is a building in China which is constructed in 2011, 71-story building. And what architect has done, it's a 71-story high, and what he has done, he had divided the building into three distinct parts. So there are two cavities which are available on the height of the building, and in these cavities he has put wind turbine. So he has put it in the wind direction, just perpendicular to wind direction, so that wind passes through this through force. And since higher you go, more wind's velocity increases. So they have wind turbine which are moving all the time and generating electricity. So this is zero energy. So they have been able to use solar panel, photovoltaic cell, in addition to wind turbine. They have done the daylight harvesting, and they have used the mechanism of air conditioning in such a manner that this building remains zero building. So let me conclude. I'm sorry I'm taking the time, but I like to conclude that if you want to make a green building, making a building green, please do, number one, that you have a green approach to site and site planning. You have to very carefully evolve your design solution. Your architect should be very sensitive. Then what system of energy efficiency that require, we saw to that. Then you will have to safeguard the water resources. You have to minimize the waste, maximize the reuse. You don't have to have a linear system of waste management. You have to have a circular system of waste management. In the circular system, there is no waste. That means the last, in this case, in linear, what you say, you take a raw material, you convert it, use it, and whatever there is, you throw it. But in the case circular economy, what you are throwing, that again becomes a raw material, and then it's put in a circle, and there is no waste which is there. That is what from linear to we come to the circular economy. So you have to use fewer, more durable local material, and so that you have lesser waste. You have to keep the environment clean. You have to create lean, smart, resilient, and flexible structure. You have to involve community and people, make use of the ICT technology, huh, which can help you in achieving many objectives like simulation, etc. Whenever you do a building, please don't look at the initial thing, look at the life cycle cost. All basically, you know these building, all projects you do, look at the life cycle cost. You try to minimize the environmental impact, you maximize social and economic value, and you have minimum embodied energy and use of water. Let me conclude. If looking at the entire context, I don't know how far I've been able to communicate. I'm not teaching you because you're all teachers. You know much more than me. You are more intelligent. You have your own understanding of the subject because you have spent your lifetime and you have gone through the entire system of these technologies, etc. But nevertheless, it is just making you aware about the role and importance that you start looking building differently what you have been looking now, because a green building makes you happy, healthy, and more productive. It provides highest quality of indoor environment. It optimizes the resources, reduces waste, minimizes carbon footprints, makes building operation cost effective and energy efficient. I'll conclude by saying a green building creates a win-win situation for the owner, for the user, for the tenant, for this community, society, environment, ecology, and for the planet itself. So you can understand this, the context. I'll complete it here, but I would request you all, since you are all in a very dominate a position which you can influence. You are a leader as a teacher. Nowhere there's no match. I would say, please take this as a agenda for making your own campus and building sustainable. Evaluate your own buildings in terms of water consumption, in terms of energy consumption, in terms of air, light, and ventilation, and indoor quality, and see how best you can redo it, and you will find things will be much better. And we would wish we can help you from the IGB side. I would say you should all have a you know this student chapter, involve student community, and make them you this as brand ambassador, so that right in the beginning they understand the value of green building. So it's not a building which is to be made green. I think if buildings have to be made sustainable, we have to make our life sustainable. Sustainable should be adopted as a principle. And if you don't have in your education a subject of green building, please include it part of this, because your students are likely to face those challenges, and they will be important. And you can choose this as also a career, because you can become a accredited professional by passing an exam and then start doing this thing. But nevertheless, this basically what we're trying to say is that you are trying to contribute to your globe, by making it more sustainable, only by looking at the you know making your building green, etc. Thank you very much. I hope, I'm sorry I taken so much time,
No
but
worries, sir. No worries. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Such a detailed and descriptive talk. So, audience, if you want to ask any questions to sir, so we will have be just 2-3 minutes. So, if anyone wants to ask some question, so you can put forward your question to sir. Participants, please, if you have any queries.
Hello, good morning, sir. I am Mitan Das from West Bengal. Mike, sir, I cannot understand about what is the purpose of aerated concrete, or you mean autoclave aerated concrete?
in fact, when I was talking the role and importance of materials in the construction of a building, right? So you have to use materials which are made from waste, number one. Number two, materials which require minimum energy to make it, and a material which are not having toxic element and which are requiring minimum of upkeep and maintenance, which is cost effective. In addition, it should be able to save you costs. So as you all know, a building has two kinds of load: dead load and the live load. So a self load of the building. So if you have materials which are basically having lightweight, surely your dead load of the building goes down. That means your structural requirement will go down. Your those reinforcement will also go down. Number one. Number two, when you are using a brick or concrete block, a block I said is a size of 8 inches by 8 inches by 16 inches. This is equivalent to 10 bricks. So if you are putting one block, you are putting 10 bricks. You can see how much time it takes 10 bricks to put in, and how much material goes in, how much labor is number one, how much water you use, how much cement you use it. Secondly, how much weight, 32 kg you are putting in there. Secondly, that that is 9 inches the size of brick. Then you plaster it. Then you put color on this everything. That makes it still thicker. But here is a block, concrete block or aerated cement concrete. This is only 8 inches. Its weight is less. It's easier to put in. One block you put in and 10 bricks you have put in. Its load is less than half of the bricks, this dead load of the building goes down. Thirdly, its width is only 8 inches, whereas you save on your space also. That means instead of that space you are having putting bricks, you will lose 2 inches of space within the room itself, which you can otherwise gain. So you have to look at the comparative, you know, merits and demerits of the case. Like we are now looking, what you people are doing. They are having these plastic wastes. These plastic waste, they are being melted and they are compacted in the case of blocks. Just put those blocks. And those are one which are having so much insulation, they do not allow heat to be gained and lost. And it doesn't cost you much. Because you are only melting the the plastic which is available and then compacting it. So the if you look at globally, there are many things which are happening. Like, I was looking at the, there are cigarette butts, and in the cigarette butts in the end, there is, there's a part which is for your smoking. They are, cotton. They have taken out that and they are compacting that and using as a bricks. So they are trying to make possible, and they have distinct advantages of this. So there are, that's the option we were looking at. So you can think of aerated cement concrete blocks, vis-a-vis, the bricks, etc., and the other kind of equipment. You have to do a cost benefit analysis. You have to look at, their cost of labor, cost of material, look at the total cost and their life, and maintenance, etc. That I think you come to a conclusion. I'm just only giving few examples. I was not saying do it just now, but you have to evaluate at your place what could be the best option. I hope
Thank you,
I am
sir.
clear.
Audience, anything else? Mr. Mitan Das, am I clear?
Yes, sir. It is clear, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I think now it is time to conclude the session, as in a very short while we have to start the another session. So thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for explaining us the concept of green building so beautifully and in so detailed. We as engineers, as well as some of architects among us, and being professionals from other fields, will definitely have to opt for this technology of green buildings. Otherwise, we can see the consequences which we have to see in the near future, as these are very beneficial to us to save our natural sources like light, energy, water. So I am greatly thankful to Sir Architect Jeet Kumar Gupta for giving such a lecture of great educative value. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, friends, now will be leave meeting. We'll be leaving the meeting for just 5 minutes, and we will again rejoin it within 10 minutes at 11:30, as we have to mark the attendance, etc. So that can be only after leaving this session. So we have to leave now. So all of will join us at 11:30 again. Thank you. Thanks all the participants.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Saab. कैसे हैं?
Fine, sir.
Thank you. Thank you
Good
for
morning to
joining us.
Gupta ji also. Gupta ji, sir. Gupta ji, good morning.
Sir, Dr. Satish Katwal from Kangra.
We have spoken once, I think, on
Sir,
phone.
sir has left the meeting, sir. Dr. Saab has
Okay,
left
no
the
issue.
meeting. Sir,
No
now
issue,
we will also have to leave the meeting. We will again join at 11:30. Otherwise,
Sure,
there are
sure,
some
sir.
technical issues.
Okay, no issue,
Okay.
sir. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Please rejoin us again in the next session.
Sure.